Hi.
Hey, you right?
Well, I'm good. Yeah, I was afraid that I couldn't find you for a little while there. I thought we need to do this all over again, but I'm glad that's not the case. How are you? How was today? Did you play any tennis?
No, I played on Friday. It's a bit
Right.
chilly, crikey.
Yeah.
No. Unfortunately, I just watched the football. That was
How was
ugly.
it? Who who played?
Arsenal Spurs. So it's the North London derby.
Okay.
The less said about the game, the better.
Who are you rooting for?
I'm an Arsenal fan since I was about five, and that was a disaster today. But
Okay.
it was probably a disaster that was going to happen because they're good and we're not too clever at the moment. So you've got to take your losses and try and bounce back, I guess.
Sure. Like in
Yeah,
tennis, right?
yeah, no, absolutely. And
Yeah.
your day, what have you been up to?
Coaching.
Woolly hat, gloves.
Everything. Hand warmers, everything that I could find, and it still wasn't enough.
Yes, it's not easy to
Unfortunately.
keep warm, isn't it? Especially when you're holding like wet balls in one
Yeah.
hand as well, isn't it? The left hand is
Especially
just,
after coming coming back after a lockdown when you've been indoors all nice and cozy and then you have to go on court and coach for like 8 hours in the freezing cold. Yeah, it's a bit difficult to get used to again.
have you ever tried putting the golf hand warmers inside your gloves?
Yes, I have, but I'll keep that for later on in the year, when it gets really, really cold.
Or
At the moment, I'm still trying to kind of suck it up and I'm keeping those tactics, let's say, for later on.
okay, you don't want to spoil yourself yet.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. When did you play? When was your first day back on court? That Friday?
No, I played on Wednesday. Was Wednesday the
Yeah.
first day? Yeah,
Yeah.
I wasn't as rusty as I thought I was going to be.
Yeah,
And
I know.
you know what it's like. You get really excited and you're keen to play. And you've got to be careful you don't overdo it. And all of a sudden you're trying to serve harder than
True,
you
true.
haven't hit a ball for a month. I mean, I saw a few people giving like tips online as to how to practice your serve in lockdown. Putting pillows on chairs and
Oh wow.
aiming serves at. I mean, what happens if you miss the chair?
People get creative, but
Yeah. So yeah, listen, it's good to come out. I mean, this time of the year it's a bit different to the first lockdown. Um, so I
true.
think it's doing some drills, keeping warm, short, sharp, 45 minutes and off because I'm double-handed on my backhand, so
Okay.
I
That's
can't wear
lucky.
it. I can't wear a glove on the left hand, and as soon as that
Yeah.
you feel that hand starting to go, you're more focused on your hand than actually hitting tennis balls. So
Yeah.
like you, I've got to find some other solutions to keeping warm.
Well, talking a bit about you feeling that you weren't that rusty, players have these, let's say it happens, you have these long breaks or longer breaks, and then you come back on court, and sometimes it's frustrating because you're not at the level that you were before your break. And I think it's quite difficult for a lot of players to accept that, especially for juniors, for example. So, what would you say to a junior in that situation? First training after, let's say, a month or two uh, of not playing.
Um, I think, I mean, obviously, usually if you've had a long break away, it's probably because you've had an injury, isn't it? So
Yeah.
I guess if you're coming back and you're all enthusiastic to play, the most important thing is that you don't go and get an injury.
Mm.
So I think it's probably a case of coming out and maybe just hitting at maybe 70, 80% and just sort of working your way back into it. I mean, I assume, most of the kids will have been doing some sort of training. But, as we all know, tennis muscles are exactly that. So you might have been running or, doing a bit of, working out or yoga at home, but
Mhm.
it's not
Not the
actually
same.
tennis, is it? So I think probably the best thing is to be careful. And I guess because things have changed, I mean, and there aren't many tournaments happening for a while,
Yeah.
it's probably a case of just changing your sort of your schedule. And, if you haven't got a tournament till, I don't know, maybe February, March, April, you don't actually have to go at it that hard straight
Mm-hmm.
off the bat, do you? Whereas,
Sure. Sure.
if all the tournaments were happening and there was a tournament next week, you would be really desperate, wouldn't you, to be playing practice sets and matches straight away. And I suppose, I'm not on the tour anymore. I'm not doing that sort of thing. My next proper match is probably, I don't know, March or April. So I've taken more of a long-term view, and almost the things I was working on before, I've decided, well, I may as well carry on, practicing what I'm trying to change in my own game. So I think for the kids, if they've got a winter program of, working on technique, that's probably more important than actually getting match fit, because matches are a while away, and and we just don't know what's going to happen after Christmas, do we? So I think
it's still kind of,
yeah, I think we've you've just got to try and stay in the now. If you can get on the court, hit a couple of balls for a couple of hours, 3 or 4 times a week, and just work on what your coach has got you doing, try and solidify that, so by the spring, it's embedded, you're not having to think about that. That's probably the best thing you can do.
I think this has probably been the biggest challenge sports people and just athletes in general have had to face in a very long time. So
I think it's really tough probably for the kids that, if you've missed that sort of last year of your age group, and you're now, let's say you were second year under 16, and now you're going to be first year under 18, and you never got to play anything.
Sure.
I think you can possibly feel like you've been a bit robbed. And all of a sudden you were the big fish in the little pond, and now you're almost starting again. So I think there's probably a lot of re-evaluation going on for a lot of the juniors. It's a bit different for the seniors, because obviously there isn't necessarily an age group in place. I mean, but we've all just got a year older, haven't we? It hasn't done anybody
gone very fast.
No, I mean, I don't know what Mr. Federer thinks. Okay, he had a little injury, but he probably didn't want to be losing a year at the age of 38.
Probably not, but who knows how he's gonna come back? All refreshed and injury free, maybe.
Well, I'm sure he's gunning for one more, isn't he?
Yeah, probably. I mean, definitely.
That big battle. What are they? 2020, 17, the big three. You've probably got to give Rafa a couple more French Opens. So I think Roger's after another Wimbledon or a US, isn't he? Yeah.
How has this year been for you? Because basically you've kind of come back into the coaching world in a way. Like, I mean, you've been appointed as the new captain of the men's team. But you haven't really had the chance to actually, take your plan and put it into practice that much.
No, I mean, that's quite frustrating, because I suppose the first big event was going to be the Winter County Cup in November. But I think probably in September we could see that one was disappearing. So it's been exciting. I've met a lot of players. I've hit with quite a few of them. We've managed to play a couple of friendlies, so that's been exciting. I've been away for a long time, so I'm very, very enthusiastic. Oh, absolutely. But it's also been very, very interesting to see how the game has changed quite a lot. I mean,
how long
certainly
have you been away for?
Well,
from all of this?
properly, without actually hitting a ball, 20 years. That's sometimes I question why has it been 20 years, but I can't look back and change that now. I'm just I'm very grateful for the opportunity. I think they saw that they had a Middlesex man very passionate and keen to get back involved. Hopefully I bring something something slightly different to the table, but certainly a winning mentality, maybe a bit of a sort of a winning ugly mentality, because I wasn't someone that could blow people off the court. So
I was gonna ask you how you were as a tennis player when.
I think I was very rounded. I think players back in the day were sort of good at everything, but weren't amazing at one or two shots. And certainly I think the game is different now. I think you've got to have big weapons, and certainly in the men's game, the serve, the forehand, the return of serve, those three things. I think, practicing and if I was going to be coaching or mentoring or managing players, you have got to be able to destroy people with big weapons. It's so different now. Rallies are much shorter, aren't they? I think the most number of points won on the ATP Tour men's is with one shot. The serve, it's an ace or it doesn't come back, and then the second most won points is three shots.
Yeah, yeah.
They get your serve back, but they can't do much with it. And you smash a winner, or you don't quite get it right, and then they take advantage of you with the fourth shot. So with the way rackets are and strings and technology, you've got to be powerful, men and women. The ball's just getting hit so hard, isn't it?
Yeah, everyone pretty much. I mean, everyone can hit the ball quite hard now and can have quite an aggressive game. So where do you think the difference is made?
In terms of?
In terms of winning a match?
I think, I've watched quite a lot of the men's tour and some of the women's tour over the last 2 or 3 months. I think unless you are a supreme athlete, you're going to be destroyed very quickly by a lot of players. So I think the game has become, a game of power, and certainly athleticism. I think there actually isn't an awful lot between, a lot of the players. It comes down to a few points here and there. Clearly, players now are playing with patterns as well.
Yeah.
So you see the likes of Nadal and Djokovic play the same point time after time, and it's almost a case of, and certainly you see it in the top women, who gets the sort of the first strike in a point tends to then dominate that point. It appears to be very, very difficult when somebody gets on top of you in the point to sort of get yourself back in the rally. Yeah. So I think you take Andy Murray a few years ago, this sort of defensive counter-attacking tennis worked. I think it's already sort of moved on. You're seeing guys with the ability to almost hit a winner from anywhere. So and off both wings, and if you just hit a ball back and it sits there, there's no sort of craft anymore. I'm going to chip a little slice backhand and on the angle, it's like bang, it's gone.
What were the biggest shocks, let's say, coming back, apart from, let's say, realizing that it has become a much more powerful game? Are there other things that are very different from when you used to be playing or involved in this?
I think probably the biggest change is the rackets and the string, from my point of view. I mean, when I was a Middlesex junior, 8, 9, 10, I had Wilson Jack Kramer wooden rackets, and you used to put them in a frame so that they didn't warp, believe it or not, at night. And I had fairway leather grips because they were long, so I could get both hands on the racket. And it was a few years before I think the Jimmy Connors, I think it was the T2000 metal racket came along, and then Arthur Ashe and graphite start evolving. So I remember watching Bjorn Borg with his Don A. Allwood rackets, and you thought, wow, you just wanted one of those rackets. So now and I've been messing around with strings and stringing tension the last 2 or 3 months. I can hit the ball harder now than when I was 25. And clearly I'm not as physically strong as I was, but the racket, a bit like golf, the technology, with the ball and the clubs, the racket and the string, and if you mess around at certain times of the year with the string tension, I mean, I'm down at 47 at the moment. In the summer I was at about 52. And it seems just by moving the tension around 3 or 4 pounds, you can probably get 5 miles an hour, on your shots. So, standing ready to serve with with the racket and the strings, you feel seriously in control.
Yeah.
And the guys that I've watched playing, you know, everybody seems to be serving like 120, 125. Then you get the odd sort of, slightly freakier player that seems to generate another 10, 15 miles an hour. Well, I'm not really sure what you're supposed to do against that. And obviously, because the ball's getting hit so hard, also doubles seems to have changed as well, because you're now getting players serving and actually staying back, because they will then hit the ball straight at the person at the net, because you haven't got any time. So unless you've got extraordinary hands and you are a very gifted volleyer, or your eyesight is so good you see the ball maybe a tenth of a second earlier, you're getting hit. The ball's being absolutely blasted at you. 30, 35 feet away, and you don't get time to react. So I've watched 2 or 3 of the guys, and the first few games, the first few games I've watched them thinking, well, you've got a great serve, but why are you staying back? And then when I see what they do with the next shot, I know why.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's a lot more common now, and people are starting to use that strategy a little bit more.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting, when obviously with the ladies team, us with the men's, that I might well find myself with Peter, picking a pair where you've got a rock solid baseliner with a fantastic volleyer, because even the doubles game has evolved differently. Gone are the days where you both just serve, volley, got on top of the net, dominated the point. Now you put somebody with amazing ground strokes with somebody who's awesome at the net. Possibly that is the best way of playing now. We're going to see.
Yeah, true. And what are your plans for the team?
To win?
Everything.
That would be nice, wouldn't it? I think
What's
we
your
may be
strategy
going to.
for?
Well, I think certainly we're going to be playing friendly matches every single month. We're going to obviously have training sessions, get-togethers. We've got a lot of very, very gifted players in Middlesex. I think the door also is open to anybody, at any age, whether, some of our best guys are in their early 40s, some of the juniors who could well be good enough for 16, 17. So I think there's an awful lot of work to do to actually, I want to see a lot of these guys actually in matches. So I'm going to travel to, events, British Tour events, futures, Premier League matches, etc. Because I think ultimately, I need to know what they can do at, 1 set all, 4 all, 30 all. So, I'm going to be popping up here and there, hopefully, as the tournaments start to take place, and build a culture, build a winning mentality, over the first 4 or 5 months of the year. So hopefully by June, we know where we are with the squad, with a view to, getting the very best side out that we can for July. And, the goal is simple next year, is to win Group 2, at about 2 o'clock on Thursday afternoon in the second round of the matches. And I truly believe, even with what I've seen so far, and obviously there are some guys that are in America, obviously there are guys that, on the tour, if we can get everybody to, buy into the Middlesex family, and they've all had amazing journeys as kids. Some of them maybe haven't played for a couple of years. Some have played. Some have never played. So we'll look at everything. We're not going to leave any stones unturned. And when we get to that Sunday, be standing there thinking we've done the best job. We're as prepared as we can be, and we've got the best 9 or 10 players there to do a job.
How do you build that winning mentality, and what does winning ugly mean to you?
What does winning ugly mean to me? We don't always walk on the court and have our A game, do we? You're a great player, and there are mysteries to this game, aren't there? Sometimes you walk on the court and you literally hit the first ball and you think that didn't feel quite right.
Not the day, yeah.
And you're knocking up and your timing isn't there, and you don't feel great. And that's when I think, you have to have an acceptance of that.
Mm-hmm.
You acknowledge it, and then you have to get down and dirty. And that might be the fact that you are literally going to make your opponent play a lot more balls. You might have to play a bit safer. You might have to mess the opponent around, keep them out of their rhythm. And it might well be that you need 6 or 8 games to sort of actually get into a match, to find yourself. And hopefully that happens.
It usually comes. It happens. You might need a set to get your rhythm
Yeah.
back. But
Yes. But I think, even in that moment, build a mentality that your opponents know that, yes, you haven't brought your A game to the table at the moment, but you're not going to be rolling over. I'm sure a lot of people remember Brad Gilbert. He obviously has the book Winning Ugly. Some of the stuff he did against people like Lendl and Connors. He actually started to ruin them mentally. He couldn't ruin them with his game, so he just got inside their heads. And tennis, like any sport, there's a lot. It's what do they say? It's 99% mental, and the other 1% is in your head.
Yeah.
So, I want a team of guys that will go out and they're prepared to, you've got to be prepared to die. Being on your own is different. We're building teams here where, everybody is their own leader. And then within a pair, you might have a leader within that pair. You've got your non-playing guys, they're still leaders, and you've got to try and create waves of momentum through matches and get everybody buying in to, like, the sort of the Nadal strategy of playing I'm going to give you nothing. And that other teams know that when they come to play Middlesex, before they've walked on the court, we're going to give you a war.
Yeah.
We might not have the best players always. Clearly some of the counties have got some amazing guys, at the top of their game, world ranked really high, but we're not going to be intimidated by that. And if we can bring, real grit and determination onto the court, then that might be worth a few extra points.
You have to make them know that they have to work hard for every point.
Yes, I don't want to. There won't be any rolling over. Everybody. You've played at a very high level. We could name lots of players now and say, what were they remembered for? What are they about? And we know the players that are mentally tough. And when you walk on the court, you are in for trouble. And if you're not mentally on it, you're probably going to lose before you even started. So that part of that has got to be the culture, and over 4 or 5 days, 10, 12, 15 matches, it's, at County Week, it's a roller coaster. You can't give anything. You can't look back on the Thursday and go, do you know what, that match we lost Monday afternoon when we were setting a break up, that's now really important. You've got to have won that match.
Yeah.
So you have no regrets. And I think that goes across the board for the juniors, the seniors, everybody. When you leave the court, don't leave anything behind. Don't have any regrets. Don't sit at home in the evening and think, do you know what, I might have won that if I'd given a bit more. Just leave it all out there. Wear your heart on your sleeve and give everything.
I wanted to ask you if you have any favorite players, or not necessarily that everyone would know, or someone that is still playing or is currently playing, but are there a few players that are in your mind and you really have appreciated them along the line, just for how they played, how they behaved, their character on court? If you can give us some examples, let's say some names.
I think, we're going back a few years. Hopefully, the youngsters watching this, will know this name. He's always been my favourite player of all time, and I think he always will be, and that's Bjorn Borg.
Why?
He to me was just a genius. I was very, very fortunate when I think I was 9 to watch Borg practice pre-Wimbledon at Cumberland. He always used to be there with there was about five guys. Vitas Gerulaitis, Adriano Panatta, Conrad Barazzuti, and his coach Leonard Berglin, and they had one box, and balls weren't in tins. They were in boxes of white balls, and Borg would knock up with one of them, and he would not miss for like an hour. And eventually the ball would be worn out. And when the ball was worn out, one of the other guys would come on and they'd get a second ball out of the box. And that's all he did. That was his warm up for like 3 hours, just knocking balls backwards and forwards. And it was extraordinary to watch that, in practice, he gave 100% in practice. There was nothing left on the practice court, and when you look back, he won 11 Grand Slams. I think he's got the longest winning streak at Wimbledon. I think he won 43 matches back to back. He retired at 26. He never travelled to the Australian Open because in those days, I think that was the fourth one in the year. And his sole goal every year, and it might be different for the guys now because they can't all play on, every surface as well as the others. His sole goal was to win the Grand Slam every year. So when it got to the US Open, which he lost in the final, I think 4 times, he was so disgusted with himself, he never travelled to Australia to play the fourth one because he just thought it was pointless. So, if you look back and the argument about the greatest player of all time over the next few years, we'll find out. But in my mind, to have 11 slams at 26 when you retire and never play one of them, and give him another 10 years, to Roger's 38, the others are in their mid-30s, Borg might well have won 25 slams. And when you look back at what they've won at 26 and what he won, he's on a par. So for me, his winning mentality, the way he was on a court, he gave the opponent nothing, absolutely nothing at all. Unbelievable athlete. He weighed exactly the same his whole career. I think he weighed 11 stone, 6 pounds for his whole career. And I just thought he was God.
But what do you think about this decision of him of not playing the slam because he was, because he lost the final? He'd be like, there's no point in doing that. As you know, when you hear about it, you're like, I don't know if.
Well, I suppose you have to respect that was his decision, and that he was solely focused on trying to win all 4 each year. I guess in those days, travel was different. So Australia was, I guess, a long way away. It wasn't private jets, where you could sleep all night. Maybe he would look back and think, well, maybe I should have done that. But clearly he wasn't bothered about the number of slams or tournaments he was going to win. It was he wanted Grand Slams. So I guess he was fiercely determined to do that.
Any player that is currently playing that you like very much, that you admire, or you think it's,
I think
that would be a player?
I think Roger Federer is for me the greatest player of all time. I was very fortunate. A friend of mine got Wimbledon finals tickets in the ballot. I think the first Wimbledon he won, I think he played Philippoussis. And we watched that. And the second point of the match, Philippoussis hit his serve down the backhand at like 132, and Federer just flicked it cross court for a winner. And I looked across at my friend, and we just chuckled and went, "Not bad, this guy." And he's managed himself over the last 2 or 3 years to try and extend his career incredibly well. Personally, I would like to see him end up with more
One
than the
more.
others.
Yeah.
Well, one more and the others don't get any.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
We'll see. Well, we'll find out next year, won't we?
True.
Yeah. But I mean, in some ways, he's doing a bit like Borg did. He's not playing the clay court season, isn't he?
Yeah.
He knows, heart of hearts, he knows he can't win at Roland Garros, doesn't he? Is he going to be able to beat, say, a Medvedev, then a Thiem, then a Nadal over 6 days? Unlikely. So he's probably doing the right thing, try and win Wimbledon, try and win the US, and I think he's probably got his eyes on the Olympics as well. We'll see. It's going to be exciting.
What would be the few, let's say, maybe 2, 3 qualities that you think a junior maybe should have in order for a coach or for yourself, for example, to think, okay, that junior could be very good, and then that junior could potentially still be very good when they reach, let's say, 20, 22, and maybe even
good question. I think with the way the game is evolving, I think it's the kid that sort of looks like they've got effortless power. I remember I was very fortunate years ago. I met Andre Agassi in Las Vegas at his office with his manager Steve Miller, and Steve was telling us a story at dinner that the first few years they saw Andre. Every time Andre practiced, every single ball hit the back fence. The ball never went in the court. But they turned around and they said, one day when this kid gets it right and the ball goes in the court, he'll be number 1 in the world.
I don't
and they
think
were
that
right.
part was in the book because I would have remembered it. But yeah.
Yeah. And I think you can teach control, but I think it's a lot harder to teach power. So if I was out scouting and watching kids, I'd be looking for the kid that, for whatever reason, whether it's natural, they've got the technique, they've just got that ability to lag their wrists when they're hitting the ball, and they've got easy power. I think that's something that I would certainly look for. I think also, I think the athleticism, just that ability to move. So, I think if you look at Federer, he's got amazing feet and hands. I would encourage youngsters to maybe watch Federer practicing or watch his YouTube videos, but just look at his feet. Don't look at anything else. Don't look at his racket or what he's doing. Just watch what his feet do. He's almost like a butterfly. You almost don't see him move.
And
so
it
I think
almost doesn't feel like he's moving, because you look at him and it seems like he's in slow motion when he moves, but he's actually very quick.
Yeah, amazing. So I think effortless power. I think athleticism, but I also then think, the ability to listen and learn and then implement something really quickly. So if you're changing something and you can do it literally within maybe, I don't know, half a dozen shots, your coach shows you, say, look, this is the way forward now, and the ability, if you like, to evolve, a bit like a chameleon, to change very, very quickly, so that, you've got it. So within maybe a couple of weeks, it's old and done. So I think being a student of the game, and understanding that if somebody who you respect and admire and is looking after your game gives you that information, can you take it on quickly? Can you learn from it, absorb it? A bit like you're a sort of a sponge, aren't you?
Yeah.
Take it in, and work on it, and and make your game better. So probably those would be 3 things I'd be looking for.
And I think maybe even the ability to be able to teach yourself at one point.
Yes, I think things are different now, aren't they?
Wait for someone to always give you the answer, to have the ability to do that yourself in a way, to think about that and find your own answers in a way.
I mean, I was playing before the internet existed, so that's all you could do, go on the court and learn. But I mean, now you can sit at home and watch YouTube videos and drills and this, that, and the other. If you decide, right, I'm going to copy something, you could almost take yourself onto the court with your phone, with a tripod, put your phone there and mirror yourself, can't you? And then you can actually put yourself alongside the player and see if you're doing it the same. So yes, I think there is an element of of self-teaching that's possible. But I think it's important that you maybe don't copy a player that you like, but maybe copy someone that's similar in your style.
Yeah. True.
Once if what type of a player you want to be, of course. Yeah.
Looking back, what would you tell 10-year-old Mark about tennis and playing tennis? And yeah,
I tell 10-year-old Mark that he needs to grow. I didn't grow till it was all too late. I could only just see over the net. At 10, I probably felt under pressure to win. So I think I would say it's more about the enjoyment. Get your technique right, and just learn to play with no fear. It doesn't really matter, I don't think, at maybe 10, 11, 12, if you're winning. Get your game right, develop your weapons, your big shots, and just play with complete freedom.
where was the pressure coming from? From yourself?
Pardon?
Where was the pressure coming from? From yourself?
Yeah, probably myself.
From your parents, from other people? No,
not really. I think, in those days, Middlesex had a whole series of tournaments. You didn't tend to go out of Middlesex, and you turn up, you'd look at the draw. I would see that I was seeded, say, 3, and I'd immediately, probably wrongly, think, right, well, I think I can beat them. Who have I got in the semi-final? Oh, that's tough. Or I think I should win that. So before I've even hit a ball, I've got an expectation which probably affected the earlier matches, when actually, it should have been more focused on getting the shots grooved and correct, so that when it came to those tough moments, actually what happened is you got nervous and the shots let you down. So I think, to any 10-year-old now, definitely enjoy it, work hard, practice hard, work on your shots, listen to your coach, be disciplined with what you're doing. And, if you've got the game, the results will follow. Absolutely. 12, 13, 14, you'll be there.
What would you tell 16-year-old Mark? Because it's quite a different story.
I think it depends. I think it probably depends, what you're looking to achieve at 16. I'm questioning the, if you like, the transition from sort of junior to, say, professional tennis in this country. I think juniors are transitioning too late. So at 16, if I hadn't played any senior tournaments, I didn't know what was ahead of me. 16, I went to my first county week at Eastbourne like a rabbit in the headlights. I mean, I didn't play the first week, probably, thank God. But when I went the second year, I knew what to expect, and I was ready. So I think the quicker you are becoming the small fish in the bigger pond and jumping forwards, the better. So I think, if you're good enough at 14, 15, I think you've got to play under 18 events. I think you've got to experience that and get a feel for it, so you're comfortable in that environment. I think Britain has lost 3 or 4 exceptional juniors. We've had world number 1s and 2s, haven't we, that have then not gone anywhere because they just weren't ready, and it was too big a jump. So when I got to, say, my 3rd county week at 18, I was very comfortable in that environment because I'd had the experience of before. So I think, of course, it's good to win, but if you're that 14, 15-year-old and you're winning under 16 events easily, do you know what? If I was the coach or manager of that kid, they wouldn't be playing them anymore. I think, is it the Italian kid Sinner stopped playing junior events at 13? I think Bjorn Borg won Junior Wimbledon at 15 when he beat Buster Mottram in the final at 15.
Do you think it depends on how that player is, like what their mentality is like, what their character is like? Because, like, what I would tell myself, my 14-year-old self, is to actually wait to play ITFs, because I started playing them at 14 and it was very difficult to adjust to them. and to learn that and accept that I will be losing or that I'm going to lose matches, because I came from playing, you know, national tournaments where I would win. I would win a lot of tournaments, and then I would play my first ITFs, let's say first year, and I didn't win as many matches as I expected, or that I think I should have won. I thought I should have won. So that was kind of a blow to my self-confidence in a way. So is it also based on what the player is like?
I mean, just asking a question there. Were you doing that on your own? Did you have you had a coach with you?
And coach, my coach wanted me to do to make that big step at that point because he thought I was ready. Okay. But looking back on that, I think it would have been a better decision to wait a little bit longer.
I think that's a big decision involving coach, family, probably. And ultimately you make that decision probably together. But when I look around the world, at the young guys that are coming through in other countries, clearly something works, and clearly the system works earlier for them to make that jump. I think British players seem to mature later, but why is that? Well, maybe that's because they're not doing the sort of things that we were talking about, earlier. Going back to Borg, made his Davis Cup debut at 15. So clearly he was ready, wasn't he? So if what made him ready, it had to be the mentoring and the support around him, that gave him the maturity. When I watch these young guys being interviewed, they're men, aren't they? They've grown up. They've been prepared for it, because it's almost like this is your destiny. This is where you're going to be going. So they're ready for it. And I'm just wondering what is in place here to get our youngsters ready for the big stage. And I don't just mean being able to play. It's about turning up at big events, about handling the press, interviews, social media, turning up and maybe not knowing where you are, getting practice courts booked, sponsorship. I think it's everything. I think it's one thing hitting the ball, but I think it's everything else that alongside that then makes you the sort of the finished article. And maybe that needs to happen a bit earlier.
Do you think that has to do with how many opportunities there are here for players aged over 18 to actually play those bigger events? Aren't there enough of them here, or?
I think from what I've seen, it's almost like you disappear into the Bermuda Triangle when junior tennis ends. It's like, well, what are you supposed to do? You're on your own. That happened to me. I didn't go pro till I was 21, because at 18 I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? So I think we probably need, a lot more sort of transition tournaments. What we ended up doing is we ended up going to France and Germany, where you could play 2 or 3 tournaments a week. And you were playing for money and winning money, and that's important, because if it's your livelihood, I can remember being in the south of France, knowing that if I lost the match, I couldn't pay the hotel bill that night. Then you find out, excuse me, if you've got any balls. So I think that this 16, 17, 18 and onwards, yes, there needs to be a lot more out there. Maybe we need, series of money events, even if they're locally. We need, a bigger picture for them, because clearly it's a bit chicken and egg. If you haven't got the ranking, you can't get in the tournament, and you can't get in the tournament without the ranking.
Exactly.
And that means like we had to go to Central Africa, India, all sorts of places, because those were the most expensive places to go. So people didn't go. and that enabled you to try and win points.
Yeah.
Well, but you couldn't do many of those because they cost a fortune. So somehow, maybe in this country, we've got to help ourselves and build a system that allows our players to earn more money, and also win and get more points. So
Yeah.
they don't have to travel to the far-flung places of the world to pick up 3 or 4 points.
What would you, I mean, what would you have liked for your coach or coaches to tell you when you were 15 or 18, for example, when you say you kind of didn't know what to do or where to go?
I mean, I was never going to, make it to the top. I think there needs to be a sort of a realization. If you've set your goals on where you maybe you can get to, I think you can build your. I would like to see more players building themselves as a bit more of a brand, rather than about the tennis that they're just playing on the court. That that they've got sponsorship deals around them, that they can almost be, influencing is a big part of social media now. In that they could be water bottles, stretch bands, shoes, kit, and everything, and that they can actually maybe build themselves into a bit more of a business, so that if they don't quite get to the level that they were hoping to, they've got something that they can fall back on, rather than just either giving up or they're just going to be a coach. Because let's be honest, most players, if they come off the tour, don't really want to coach straight away. That's almost like, well, that's the only thing I know, so that's all I'm going to do. But I think if you've got more around you, and you can, whether you're going into commentary or management or whatever it is, you can be a business. So possibly, if you're needing to get sponsorship, maybe you become your own sort of limited company, and maybe you get investors to almost invest into you, because you're going to say, look, I'm trying to make it as a pro, but I've also got all these other strings to my bow, and you can be a part of that. I follow a few of the people on Instagram. They've got 30, 40, 50,000 followers. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Well,
Yeah,
I
I see
think
it, yeah.
you need to monetize that, because clearly they're following you for a reason. So, if you're seen wearing the next top or bobble hat or whatever it might be in the winter, why not be approaching those companies and saying, listen, I'll promote all your products, but I'm not doing it for nothing, and actually build yourself as a business, because ultimately you're a
And it would
brand.
be a way. It would be a way of funding your own tennis and journey.
Yeah, I think it would help, and I think also investors, sponsors would look at that and think, well, this is a bit different. I like this. This person's got a brain. They've got some intelligence here, and I'll get behind them. Because as we know, people like to be associated with successful people. They love to be around amazing sports people. So I think that would help get them on board.
Okay. Well, what would you say, or yeah, how would you describe a good coach? What would you look for in a good coach? This is for parents, let's say, that, I mean, it's I guess it's a very big responsibility to choose the coach that your child is going to have, and the person that's going to guide your child, not only in tennis, but they're going to teach them in different ways as well. It's a big responsibility, let's say, especially if you haven't played tennis yourself, or if you're not a sports person. So how would you say they have to make that decision?
Yeah, it's a big relationship, isn't it? I think that coach, you've definitely got to feel that they love the sport. That it's absolutely no problem. There's plenty of coaches out there. It's a living. You do your 30, 40, 50 hours a week. You're not really that involved in your players, whether they get better or not. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. There's lots of people go to work, don't they?
Yeah.
So first of all, I think you're looking for that coach that actually loves tennis, and and then they are all in. They're going to be completely committed to you as a player. You're going to feel that you're their priority, and that they are going to give you 100%, not just on the court. Hopefully they can come and watch your matches. They can get involved in your diet, your fitness, your nutrition. That I think it's that they're a good communicator. I think, like in life, in personal relationships and businesses, most things go wrong when there's that hidden conversation that isn't going on. So I think it's important that you find someone that you can be open with and you can trust in a conversation, and they will respect that and trust that back, because you might, October one year, we need to change your serve dramatically, and the player's got to believe that the coach has got it right, be able to ask questions of the coach, and the coach has got the answers as to why you're doing it. I think in any walk of life, any sport, certainly, somebody that's really into it is always asking questions. So your coach has got to have the answers for you, and you've got to believe and trust them. So I think it's a strong bond, and the coach is there for you in every situation. He's not there to criticize you because you're going to lose matches. He might see you throwing your racket, swearing, going ballistic, not trying, during practice, and that girl, takes all that on board, understands you, and gets the most out of you. And when you look across and they're watching you, that they've got your back. They want the very best for you. They are all in. They're 100% in, like you are as a player. And I think it works two ways. If somebody came to me and said, Mark, I want you to be in my corner, that fine, you'll get 100% of me, but you better give me 100% back, because there are situations you hear of players and coaches breaking up. Well, it's not necessarily the player that sacked the coach, is it? The coach might have had enough of the player.
Yeah, that could be.
So I think, yes, that sit down and be open and honest and transparent. What do you want from the coach? What does the coach want from the player? Go with your gut feeling. Get a feeling about that person that they are going to give you everything, and they're going to be out there on that wet Sunday afternoon feeding you balls because they love the game, they love you, and they want the best for you.
You were talking about finding a coach that accepts you as a player, even with the tantrums and all of that. I say, as a coach, when you see your player doing something like that, or let's say when they lose a match, what do you do, or what would a good coach have to do in that situation? What do you say? How do you react without them feeling judged, or without them feeling punished for losing or behaving a certain way?
I've never worried if a player shows emotion, that they care. The player whose head goes down and just quits, I think that's something slightly different, because like anything that's a habit, quitting is a habit. Once you've quit once, it's very easy to quit again. So if that player is dramatic, emotional, screaming, shouting, whatever, I'd prefer to be dealing with that, because they clearly care. And I think as you build the relationship, you know how to manage that person. Is that the person you go into the changing room straight after they've played, or you leave them for an hour? You get to know what works for them. Do they need some time, or do they want to talk straight away? And again, when it happens, the first couple of times, you probably have that honest conversation with them as to how do they want you to handle them. Do they want to be left alone? Because if you don't discuss it, then you don't know, do you?
You just
You just an assumption in anything is a disaster, because that leaves both sides of the fence not really knowing what the situation is. And I'm sure we've all read plenty of books about volatile players, you know, and what they've done and how they've matured and grown up, and that's probably come from their mentors, their coaches, etc. Working with them. You know, we're at the end of the day, we're all work in progress every day, aren't we? You know, I still get angry on the court, you know, at 52 years old, because I still care. I get cross with myself, but I've learned how to channel that now.
What
You
did
know,
you prefer then? When you were playing, what did you prefer, you know, your parents doing? You know, talking after you've lost a match, or just leaving you alone, or what was your...
My dad got too nervous to watch, you know. My mum watched quite a lot of my matches, but actually past the age of probably about 15, you know, I was probably most of the time on my own, which, you know, and I travelled with a couple of friends. You know, it was different then. You know, we got on the buses, the tubes, the trains all over the country. We slept in tents. That was the world we knew, and we sort of made our own way. We didn't have this big network of, you know, of support that exists now. So we were tough then, and you know, we probably still are, but we probably went down a lot of, you know, wrong roads because nobody showed us showed us the right roads back in those days. Yeah,
it's a way of learning, you know.
Of course, yes, yeah, but you know, it's every player's different, aren't they? That's what's exciting. And when you put a team together, you've got 7, 8, 10 different personalities, egos, and you've got to manage them all.
And I think it's good that you said that you have to have that conversation. I think it's good for parents to know as well that they can actually ask their child, like, what do you prefer me doing in that situation? Do you want me to talk to you, or do you want me to leave you alone?
Yeah, I think then the relationship between the coach and the parents is an interesting one, because, you know, some parents are amazing tennis parents and some parents don't get it, haven't got a clue. You know, I went to a tournament a couple of weeks ago and I was watching a dad, you know, just literally almost trying to talk to his son every single point, and the son was just playing in fear, and I'm just looking at thinking, talented kid, but this isn't going to work, you know. So it's hard as a parent. You possibly have to not be a parent when you're watching your child play. They can't see your emotion. You have to try and be a bit of a blank canvas. I mean, when you look at some of the top coaches, you know, and they sit in the box at Wimbledon or wherever, a lot of them do with very little emotion, don't they? Sure. They're just blank face, and you know, you're passive in that moment. You can't really influence it. You know, the players out there, the players got to perform. You can't be looking for you know, help. I found it very interesting. I think when Murray took on Lendl and had his best, I think it was 2012 to 14, and he won Wimbledon, US, the Olympics, and got to #1. But Lendl there was no emotion at all, was there? Even he just sat there, didn't he, with his shades on? He might have been asleep for all we knew. But then Murray became different on the court, didn't he? So Lendl taught him that you couldn't have all that drama going on every single point. You know, just be hard, you know, be aggressive, move forward, and get on with it. So, you know, when the player goes on the court, the parents and the coach and whoever's in the team, you've got to have your player ready. Your job is then done. You can't really do anything then. So all those off-court conversations in the locker room, the gym, the practice thing, you know, have got to be had. And I think, you know, honesty and truth and transparency has to be the way forward. You know, and ultimately the player goes out into the, you know, onto the stage, and it's for them to perform, to deliver.
Exactly. Okay. Do you mind if we end with a round of quick fire questions?
Oh, go on then.
Yeah. #1 strength as a player for yourself. Your #1 strength.
Serve.
Pick a doubles partner. Anyone.
John McEnroe.
Why?
Well, when Peter Fleming, when they won their 5th Wimbledon doubles title, I think the press said to him, who's the best doubles pair of all time? And Peter Fleming replied, John McEnroe and anybody. So I'll go with that one. Just unbelievably gifted. Amazing.
Favorite film?
Shawshank Redemption.
Summer or Christmas?
Oh, I think we'll go summer. We need the sunshine.
Favorite Christmas song?
Mariah Carey.
Night in or night out?
I do like being in, but I think at the moment a night out would be good.
Phone call or text?
Actually, I used to do a lot of texting. I think phone calls are better now. Yeah, we're going back to the old ways. Yeah, we'll make the call.
Instagram or Twitter?
Instagram.
Sweet or savory?
Oh, we're going sweet. Yeah, we're hitting the cheesecake.
Okay. Country you'd move to?
Oh, Arizona in America.
Okay. Interesting choice. And Marmite or Brussels sprouts?
Well, hope not together.
Well, that would be a combination.
Oh, well, it's Christmas is coming, so it's got to be Brussels sprouts, hasn't it?
Okay. Cool. Well, thank you.
No, thank you.
Those questions. And yeah, if you have any Christmas message for the Middlesex players, or a message, or if you want them to know that they're welcome to come and help us out, you know, make the team bigger and better.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, a couple of the top guys are going to come on with you in the next couple of weeks. So that'd be exciting. I'll look forward to watching that. I would say to everybody in Middlesex, you know what, we're an amazing county. We've got a fantastic setup, you know, with Andrew and the board and everything, you know, and all the coaches. I've met quite a few of you. You're great. We've got strength all the way from under 8s up to probably over 70s and 80s. You know, obviously we won the county cup. We need to try and all work together and win that again next year. I look forward to meeting a lot more of you, and hopefully we can all be successful together in 21. Keep practicing, keep working hard. Don't eat too much turkey at Christmas, and hopefully next year will be best year we've ever had.
Hopefully. Good. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
And see you soon on court.
And you. Absolutely. Bye.
Bye. Bye.